The rain had stopped, but Portland still wore it. Wet pavement reflected the amber glow of streetlights just beginning to flicker on. Ethan Cole pulled his truck into a spot outside Northside Coffee Lab and cut the engine. 3 years. Same coffee shop, same time. Same corner table in the back where the light stayed soft and the noise stayed manageable. He grabbed his laptop bag from the passenger seat, shouldered it, and stepped out into the damp November air. The smell hit him first. Rain on concrete, wood smoke drifting from somewhere down the block. And underneath it all the promise of roasted coffee beans. He was halfway to the door when he saw her. Through the window. Sitting alone at the table by the glass. Head down. Shoulders curved inward like she was trying to disappear. Diane Harper, his ex-wife's mother. Ethan stopped. His hand tightened on the strap of his bag. He could turn around. Get back in the truck, find another place to work. She wouldn't even know he'd been here. But then he saw the coffee cup in front of her. Untouched, steam long gone. And he saw the way people were looking at her. Sideways glances, whispered words behind raised hands, the kind of attention that made you feel small. He knew that feeling. The door chime rang soft when he pushed inside. Warm air wrapped around him. The espresso machine hissed. Conversations hummed low and easy. Maya, the barista, caught his eye and reached for his usual without asking. Black. Nothing fancy. He nodded his thanks but didn't move toward the counter yet. Diane hadn't looked up. She was staring at that cold cup of coffee like it held answers she couldn't find. Her hair, more silver than he remembered, fell loose around her face. Her hands rested in her lap. Still. Too still. A memory flashed, sharp and uninvited. Diane on his living room floor 2 years ago. Playing dinosaurs with his daughter Lily. Laughing, patient, present, while the rest of Rachel's family had vanished the moment the divorce papers were signed. Diane had stayed. She'd shown up, brought books, brought kindness, never once made him feel like he'd failed. You're still her father, she'd said, always. He looked at her now, alone in a coffee shop, surrounded by strangers who didn't know her, didn't see her. Ethan made his choice. He walked to the counter, took his coffee from Maya, and crossed the room. His boots were quiet on the wood floor. When he reached Diane's table, he stopped beside the empty chair. She looked up. Her eyes went wide. Then something softer moved across her face. Recognition. Maybe relief. Maybe just exhaustion. Mind if I sit? Ethan asked. Diane blinked, opened her mouth, closed it. Finally managed a small nod. Please. He sat. Set his bag on the floor. Looked at her for a long moment. The lines around her eyes. The way she wouldn't quite meet his gaze, the coffee cup she still hadn't touched. Coffee's cold, he said quietly. She glanced down at it, her throat worked. Yeah, she whispered. It is. If you're wondering what brought Diane here alone, what happened before Ethan walked in, drop a comment below. And if you want to see where this story goes next, hit that subscribe button. Part 2 is coming soon. The silence between them stretched. Not uncomfortable exactly. Just heavy. Like something fragile balanced on the edge of a table. Ethan wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. The heat bled through the ceramic into his palms. He watched Diane's fingers trace the rim of her own cup. Slow circles. Repetitive. The kind of movement that said her mind was somewhere else entirely. You okay? He asked. It was a simple question, maybe too simple, but he didn't know where else to start. Diane's fingers stopped moving. She looked up at him, tried to smile. I'm fine. The words came out too quick, too practiced, like she'd been saying them all afternoon and hoped if she said them enough they'd become true. Ethan didn't push, he just waited, let the silence settle again, gave her space to fill it if she wanted to. She wanted to. "Just having some coffee," Diane added. Her voice was quieter now, thinner. She glanced out the window at the darkening street. "Thought I'd get out of the house for a bit." "Good spot for it," Ethan said. He took a sip of his coffee, still too hot, but he didn't care. "I come here most afternoons, usually when I need to think." "Or not think?" Diane asked. The corner of his mouth lifted. "Yeah, that too." Another silence, this one easier. Diane's shoulders relaxed a fraction. She picked up her cup, put it back down without drinking. The coffee had to be ice-cold by now. "How's Emma?" Diane asked suddenly, like she'd been holding the question back and finally let it go. "She's good," Ethan said. His whole face softened when he talked about his daughter. "Growing like a weed. 3rd grade now. Can you believe that?" "3rd grade," Diane repeated. A real smile touched her lips this time. Small but genuine. God. Time moves fast. Too fast, Ethan agreed. "She asks about you, you know. Wonders when you're coming by again." Diane's eyes filled, quick, unexpected. She looked down at her lap. "I should visit more. I didn't want to intrude." "You're never intruding," Ethan said firmly. "You know that." She nodded, but didn't look convinced. Ethan leaned forward slightly, rested his forearms on the table. "Diane, what's really going on?" Her breath caught. She pressed her lips together, shook her head like she was trying to hold something back, but then her shoulders sagged and the words came out in a rush. "I was supposed to meet someone here." Ethan frowned. "A friend? No." Diane laughed. It was a bitter sound, hollow. "A date from one of those apps." She said it like she was confessing something shameful, like the very idea of her being on a dating app was ridiculous. Ethan kept his expression neutral. He'd heard about those apps, seen the commercials, never used one himself. The whole concept seemed strange to him, reducing people to photos and a few lines of text. But he didn't say that, he just nodded. "And they didn't show—" "Oh, he showed?" Diane's voice went flat, dead. "He walked in, looked at me, and then he said the photos I used made me look younger than I am." She paused, swallowed hard. "He said we weren't compatible, and then he left." The words hung in the air between them. Cold and cruel. Ethan felt something tight and hot settle in his chest. Anger. The quiet kind that didn't need to shout. "I'm sorry," he said. The words felt inadequate, useless. But they were all he had. Diane shook her head quickly. "It's fine. Really. I shouldn't have expected anything different." "That's not true," Ethan said. His voice was firmer now. "What he did was cruel. That's on him, not you." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were wet, red-rimmed. "I used old photos, Ethan, from 2 years ago, when my hair was darker. When I looked—" She trailed off, gestured vaguely at herself. "Better." "You don't look bad now," Ethan said. "Don't." Diane's voice cracked. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it because I have to." Ethan held her gaze. Steady, sure. "I'm saying it because it's true." A tear slid down her cheek, then another. She wiped at them quickly. Embarrassed. "I just thought maybe I still had something to offer, that maybe someone would want to, I don't know, get to know me, but clearly I was wrong." "You weren't wrong," Ethan said quietly. He was, for not seeing what was right in front of him. Diane let out a shaky breath. More tears came. She couldn't seem to stop them now. She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. Ethan didn't say anything. He just reached across the table, pulled a napkin from the dispenser, set it down in front of her, waited. When she finally lowered her hands, she took the napkin, pressed it to her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm making a scene." "You're not," Ethan said. He glanced around the coffee shop. A few people were watching, pretending not to, but their eyes kept drifting back. "And even if you were, who cares?" "I care," Diane whispered. But she didn't get up, didn't leave, she just sat there, holding that napkin, trying to put herself back together. Ethan stood. "Stay here." Diane looked up, alarmed. "Where are you going?" "Just to the counter. I'll be right back." He walked to the front. Maya was wiping down the espresso machine. She looked up when he approached. "Can I get another coffee?" Ethan asked. "Whatever she usually orders, hot." Maya glanced past him toward Diane's table. Her expression softened. "Cappuccino. Extra foam, coming right up." She didn't ask questions, didn't make him explain. She just made the drink. Ethan paid, carried it carefully back to the table. He set it down in front of Diane. "Here." She stared at the cup, then at him. "You didn't have to do that. I know." She reached out, wrapped her hands around the cup. The warmth seemed to ground her. She closed her eyes, took a slow breath. "Thank you." "You're welcome." They sat in silence for a moment. Diane took a small sip of the cappuccino. The foam left a faint white line above her lip. She wiped it away, almost smiled. "This is good." "Maya makes the best coffee in Portland," Ethan said. "Is that the barista?" "Yeah. She's been here longer than I have." Diane nodded, took another sip. The tension in her face was easing, bit by bit. "Do you remember that puzzle?" she asked suddenly. Ethan blinked. "What puzzle?" "The one I brought Emma last time I visited. The dinosaurs." "Oh." Ethan grinned. "Yeah. She spent 3 days on that thing, wouldn't let me help. Said she had to do it herself." "Sounds like her." Diane's smile was real now. Soft. Stubborn, determined. "She gets that from you," Ethan said. Diane laughed, actually laughed. It was quiet, brief, but real. "I think she gets it from both sides." "Fair enough." They talked about Emma after that. About school and friends, and the gap in her front teeth she kept wiggling with her tongue. About the way she still lined up her stuffed animals every night before bed. About how she'd asked Ethan last week if Grandma Diane was okay because she hadn't visited in a while. "I should come by," Diane said. "Soon." "She'd love that," Ethan said. "So would I." Diane looked at him. Something uncertain flickered in her eyes, like she wasn't sure if he meant it. "You're too kind, Ethan." "I'm just honest." She shook her head but didn't argue. She lifted her cup, drank. The warmth was coming back to her face, color returning. The coffee shop felt less oppressive now, like a weight had lifted, just slightly. But then Diane's eyes drifted past him, toward the tables by the window. Her smile faded, her shoulders tensed. "People are staring," she said quietly. Ethan didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He'd felt it too. The weight of eyes, the whispered conversations, the way the room seemed to lean in without moving. "Let them," he said. "They're going to think things," Diane said. Her voice was tight again, strained. "About why you're here with me, a man your age sitting with a woman my age. They're going to assume. What I think matters more than what they think," Ethan said. He kept his voice calm, even. And I think you came here hoping for something good, and you got treated badly instead. That's not fair, and you shouldn't have to sit here alone feeling like it was your fault." Diane's breath hitched. Fresh tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you being so kind to me?" The question was raw, vulnerable, like she genuinely couldn't understand why anyone would choose to sit with her, to care about her. Ethan was quiet for a moment. He thought about the divorce, about how Rachel's father had stopped returning his calls, how her brother had unfriended him on social media, how the cousins who used to come to barbecues in the summer had disappeared like smoke. But Diane had stayed. She'd kept showing up, kept treating him like he mattered, kept being Emma's grandmother even when she didn't have to be. "Because you were kind to me when you didn't have to be," Ethan said simply. "After Rachel and I split, you still came to see Emma. You never made me feel like I'd lost the right to be her father. That meant something to me." Diane pressed the napkin to her eyes again. "I knew it wasn't anyone's fault. Marriages end. It doesn't mean you stopped being Emma's father." "Exactly," Ethan said. "And it doesn't mean you stopped mattering to her or to me." Diane cried quietly. The kind of crying that came from relief more than sadness, like something locked inside her had finally been given permission to come out. Ethan didn't try to stop her, he just sat there, present, steady. Sometimes that was all someone needed, just someone willing to stay. The coffee shop hummed on around them. Conversations rose and fell. The espresso machine hissed. The door chime rang as people came and went. But at their table, something had shifted. The air felt lighter, like a burden shared instead of carried alone. When Diane finally lowered the napkin, her face was blotchy, her mascara smudged, but her eyes were clearer. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Ethan replied. She nodded, took another sip of her cappuccino, looked out the window at the street. The rain had started again, light, gentle, washing the pavement clean. But then her gaze shifted, caught on something. Her whole body went still, Ethan noticed. "What's wrong?" Diane didn't answer right away. She was staring at the other tables, at the woman by the window who kept glancing their way, at the two men near the counter whose conversation had paused, at the way people were leaning in, whispering. "Everyone's watching us," she whispered. Ethan looked around then. She was right. The attention hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown. People weren't even pretending not to stare anymore. A woman pulled out her phone, typed something, showed it to her friend. Both looked over. The judgment was thick in the air, unspoken but present, and Diane felt every ounce of it. Her hands started to shake. She set down her cup. "I should go." "You don't have to," Ethan said. "I do." Her voice was strained. "This is making it worse. People are going to talk. They're going to say things about you, about us. I can't do that to you. Diane. I've taken up enough of your time." She was gathering her things now, her purse, her jacket, moving too fast, frantic. "You have work to do. I shouldn't have stayed this long." "Stop." The word was gentle but firm. Diane froze, looked at him. "You're not intruding," Ethan said. "And I don't care what anyone in here thinks. Neither should you. But they're staring. So let them stare." Diane's eyes were wide, scared, like a part of her wanted to believe him but couldn't quite make the leap. She sat back down slowly, reluctantly, her hands twisted in her lap. The room pressed in around them. The whispers continued. The glances multiplied, and somewhere in the back of Ethan's mind he knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The woman by the window wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She leaned toward her companion. Her lips moved fast, urgent. Her eyes kept darting back to Diane and Ethan. Then she laughed, not loud, just loud enough to carry. Diane heard it. Ethan saw her flinch. At the table near the door, a man in a business suit glanced over his laptop screen. His expression was careful, neutral, but his eyes lingered too long, assessed too much. Then he shook his head slightly, like he'd come to some private conclusion and found it wanting. A young couple at the counter. The girl nudged her boyfriend, whispered something behind her hand. Both turned to look. The boyfriend smirked, said something back. The girl giggled. It wasn't malicious exactly, just casual, thoughtless. The kind of judgment people passed without even realizing they were doing it, without caring what it cost. Diane's fingers had gone white around her coffee cup. Her jaw was tight. Her breathing shallow. She was shrinking again, trying to make herself smaller, invisible. Ethan felt his own jaw clench. He forced himself to relax, to keep his expression calm. But something hot and protective was building in his chest. The same instinct that made him step between Emma and a barking dog, the same reflex that made him stand up when someone was being treated unfairly. He wanted to turn around, to stare back at all of them until they looked away. But he knew that would only make it worse, would only confirm whatever story they were already telling themselves. So he did the only thing he could do. He stayed. He looked at Diane, and he waited for her to look back. When she finally did, her eyes were wet again. "I should really go," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "This is only making things worse." "For who?" Ethan asked. "For you." Diane glanced around the room. They think you and I are." "I know what they think." "Then you should understand why I need to leave." Ethan leaned forward, kept his voice low. "What I understand is that you came here today hoping for something good, a conversation, maybe a connection, and instead you got judged by someone who didn't deserve 5 minutes of your time. Now you're being judged by a room full of strangers who know even less." He paused. "Don't let them win twice." Diane's breath hitched. "It's not about winning, isn't it?" She looked down at her hands. They were trembling now. "I just don't want to cause problems for you." "You're not causing problems," Ethan said. "You never have." That seemed to hit something in her. She looked up at him, studied his face, like she was searching for the lie, the politeness, the thing people said when they didn't mean it. She didn't find it. "Why did you really sit down?" Diane asked suddenly. "You could have just waved, said hello from across the room. But you came over, you sat. Why?" It was a fair question, and it deserved an honest answer. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. He thought about all the easy things he could say, that he was being polite, that he happened to be walking past, that it seemed like the right thing to do. But none of that was the whole truth. "After the divorce," he said slowly, "everyone disappeared." Diane blinked. She hadn't expected that. "Rachel's dad," Ethan continued. "He stopped calling, stopped answering when I called him. Her brother unfriended me, blocked me. The cousins, the aunts and uncles, all the people who used to come over for holidays, they all just vanished." He picked up his coffee cup, turned it slowly in his hands. The ceramic was smooth, warm, grounding. "It was like I'd been erased," he said. "Like the 10 years I spent as part of that family didn't matter. Like Emma didn't matter. They all chose sides, and I wasn't on theirs." Diane's eyes were wide now, focused completely on him. "Ethan, I didn't know. I didn't tell anyone," he said. "What was the point? It was done. Over. I just had to figure out how to move forward, how to be a single dad, How to explain to Emma why Grandpa Frank didn't come around anymore, why Uncle Mike never called on her birthday. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something old and painful that he'd learned to carry quietly. "And then you showed up," Ethan said. He looked at Diane now, really looked at her. "2 weeks after the papers were signed, you came to the house. You brought that book Emma had been asking for. You sat on the floor with her for 2 hours. You didn't mention the divorce, didn't ask questions, you just showed up." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "She's my granddaughter." "I know," Ethan said. "But you didn't have to keep showing up. You could have done what everyone else did. Chosen your daughter's side. Decided I wasn't worth the effort anymore. But you didn't. You kept coming. You kept treating me like I mattered, like I was still Emma's father, like I was still someone." His voice caught on that last word, just slightly. He cleared his throat, looked down at his coffee. "You were the only one," he said quietly. "The only one who stayed." The silence that followed was different from all the others. Heavier, fuller, like something true had been spoken into existence and now had weight. Diane wiped at her eyes. Her hand was shaking. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you felt. I didn't realize." "How could you?" Ethan said. "I never told you." "You should have." "Maybe." He shrugged. "But I'm telling you now." Diane took a shaky breath. "I stayed because I knew it wasn't your fault. Marriages end. People grow apart. That doesn't mean you stopped being a good father. It doesn't mean you stopped mattering." "That's exactly what everyone else thought it meant," Ethan said. "Then everyone else was wrong." The words came out fierce, stronger than anything she'd said all afternoon, like something inside her had woken up, found its voice. Ethan smiled, small, sad. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. You were the only one who saw that, who saw me, even when I felt invisible." Understanding moved across Diane's face, slow, then all at once. "And now you're doing the same thing for me." "Yeah," Ethan said simply. "I am." Diane pressed her hand to her mouth. Fresh tears spilled over, but these were different. Not shame, not embarrassment, something closer to relief, like a knot inside her had finally come loose. "I thought I was invisible," she whispered. "I thought maybe I'd become irrelevant, that I didn't matter to anyone anymore." "You matter to Emma," Ethan said. "She asks about you all the time. When's Grandma coming? Can we call her? She misses you. I miss her too. And you matter to me," Ethan added. His voice was firm now. "Sure, you always have." Diane lowered her hand, looked at him through tears. "You didn't fail, Ethan. You know that, right, with Rachel, with the marriage. You didn't fail." Something in his chest loosened. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed to hear that. From someone who knew, who'd been there. "Neither did you," he said. "With today, with that guy, with any of it." Diane let out a long, shaky breath, nodded, wiped her eyes again. "God, I'm a mess. You're human. Same thing." Ethan laughed, actually laughed. And after a second, Diane did too. It was quiet, fragile, but real. The coffee shop seemed different now, less oppressive. The whispers were still there. The stares hadn't stopped. But somehow they mattered less, like the two of them had built something between them that the room couldn't quite penetrate. Diane picked up her cappuccino, took a long sip. "This really is good coffee." "Told you." "You did." She set the cup down, looked at him. "Thank you. For this. For sitting with me. For everything." "You don't have to thank me." "I know. But I want to." They fell into an easier silence after that. Not empty, just comfortable. The kind of quiet that didn't need to be filled. Outside, the rain picked up. Drops streaked down the window. The streetlights glowed brighter against the darkening sky. Inside, the coffee shop settled into its evening rhythm. People came and went. Conversations rose and fell. The espresso machine kept hissing. Maya kept making drinks. And at their table, something had shifted, healed. Two people who'd been carrying separate wounds had found a moment of understanding, of connection. Diane looked more relaxed now. Her shoulders had dropped. Her hands had stopped shaking. She'd even smiled a few times. Real smiles. The kind that reached her eyes. "Tell me about your work," she said suddenly. "You're still doing architecture, right? Freelance," Ethan said. "Mostly residential. Some small commercial projects. Do you enjoy it? Most days, it's flexible. Lets me pick Emma up from school. Be around when she needs me. That's important." "It is." He paused. "What about you?" "Still at the library. Still there." Diane's face brightened. "We just started a new literacy program for kids. It's been amazing. Seeing them discover books, watching them get excited about reading. Emma talks about the library all the time. Says it's her favorite place. She's always welcome. You both are. I know. We should come by more often. I'd like that." They talked about small things after that. Books, weather, the way Portland changed in November. The conversation flowed easier now, natural. Like two people who'd known each other a long time and were just catching up. But underneath the ease, Ethan could still feel the weight of the room. The attention hadn't disappeared. It had just quieted, waiting. Diane must have felt it too. Every few minutes, her eyes would drift past him, toward the other tables, the window, the door. Her fingers would tighten around her cup. Then she'd pull her gaze back, force herself to stay present. "They're still watching," she said eventually. Quiet, almost apologetic. Ethan glanced over his shoulder. She was right. The woman by the window, the businessman. Even Maya, behind the counter, kept looking over. But their expressions had changed. Less judgmental now. More curious. Like they were trying to figure out the story instead of assuming they already knew it. "Let them watch," Ethan said. He turned back to Diane. "We're just two people having coffee." "Are we?" Diane asked. There was something vulnerable in the question. Like she wanted to believe it, but wasn't sure she could. "Yeah," Ethan said. "We are." Diane nodded slowly. Took another sip of her cappuccino. The foam was gone now. Just warm milk and espresso. But she didn't seem to mind. The light outside was fading fast. The rain had settled into a steady rhythm. Soft, persistent. The kind that would last through the night. Inside the coffee shop felt smaller now. Warmer. The Edison bulbs overhead cast everything in amber. Shadows gathered in the corners. People's voices dropped to murmurs. It should have felt peaceful. And for a moment it almost did. Diane set down her cup, looked out the window. "It's getting late." "Yeah." "You probably have things to do. Work, Emma." "I have time," Ethan said. She smiled, small, grateful. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole. I'm just me." "Exactly." They sat in that for a moment. Comfortable. Connected. Two people who'd found each other in the middle of separate struggles and realized they weren't as alone as they'd thought. Then the door chimed. It was a familiar sound. Ethan had heard it 100 times this afternoon, 1,000 times over the years. But this time it felt different. Sharper, like a warning. He didn't know why, couldn't explain it, just a shift in the air, a change in the room's energy. Diane felt it too. Her whole body went rigid, her eyes fixed on something behind him, over his shoulder, toward the door. The color drained from her face. Fast, complete, like someone had pulled a plug. "Oh no," she whispered. Ethan turned. A man stood just inside the entrance, tall, late 50s, silver hair carefully styled. Expensive leather jacket that still had the stiff look of something new. He was scanning the room, eyes moving from table to table, searching. Then he found what he was looking for. His gaze locked on Diane, and something cold moved across his face. Not quite a smile, more like satisfaction, like he'd caught someone doing something they shouldn't. He started walking toward them. Ethan looked back at Diane. Her hands were gripping the edge of the table, knuckles white, breathing shallow. She looked terrified. "Who is that?" Ethan asked quietly. Diane's voice came out barely audible. "Broken, Marcus, the man from the dating app, the one who'd walked out, who'd made her feel small, worthless. He was coming back." And from the look on his face, he had something to say. Marcus stopped 3 feet from their table, close enough to loom, far enough to keep the appearance of civility. His eyes swept over Ethan with casual disdain, then settled back on Diane. "Well, well," he said. His voice was loud, projected, like he wanted the whole room to hear. "Looks like you found someone after all." Diane's mouth opened, no sound came out. "Marcus," she managed finally. Her voice was thin, strained. This isn't." "Isn't what?" Marcus interrupted. He pulled a phone from his jacket pocket, held it up. "I came back for this. Left it on the table earlier. Careless of me." He said it casually, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Like he'd known exactly where he'd left his phone. Like coming back was the plan all along. Ethan stayed very still. Every instinct told him to stand, to put himself between Marcus and Diane, but he knew that would only escalate things, make them worse, so he stayed seated, kept his hands on the table, visible, calm. But inside he was calculating too, measuring distances, angles, the fastest way to end this if it went bad. Marcus's gaze shifted to Ethan, really looked at him now, took in the younger face, the steady eyes, the protective posture. "Who's this?" Marcus asked. He was smiling now, the kind of smile that had teeth. "Your backup plan?" "No," Diane said quickly. He's a friend." Marcus laughed, short, sharp. "A friend, right, sure he is." Ethan felt his jaw tighten. He forced himself to relax it. "Not that it's any of your business," he said. His voice was level, controlled. "But yes, a friend." Marcus raised an eyebrow. Defensive, interesting. He leaned against the back of an empty chair, made himself comfortable. "You know, I thought maybe I was a little harsh earlier. Felt bad about it on the drive home. Thought I'd come back. Check on her, make sure she was okay." He said it like he was doing her a favor, like coming back was an act of generosity. "But now I see I was right to leave," Marcus continued. He looked at Diane again. His smile widened. "You're not looking for a real connection. You're just looking for someone to make you feel better about yourself." Diane flinched, like the words were physical, like they'd hit her somewhere soft and unprotected. Ethan's hands curled into fists under the table, but his face stayed calm. "You don't know anything about her." "Don't I?" Marcus's tone was mocking now. "She used photos that weren't accurate. Showed up looking nothing like what she advertised. That tells me everything I need to know about her honesty. It tells you she wanted to feel good about herself." Ethan shot back, "Which is something you clearly know nothing about." Marcus's smile faltered. Just for a second. Then it came back harder, meaner. "Listen, kid, I don't know what your deal is, but Maybe you should stay out of this. This is between me and her." "There is no you and her," Ethan said. "You made that clear when you walked out. And yet, here we are." Marcus gestured around the table. "You playing hero, her playing victim. It's almost sweet." The room had gone completely quiet now. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward their table. The woman by the window had her phone out. Recording, maybe. Or texting. The businessman had closed his laptop. The young couple by the door stood frozen, watching. Even Maya had stopped moving behind the counter. Her hand rested on the espresso machine, her face tight with concern. Diane's breathing had gone shallow, fast, like she couldn't get enough air. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to press them against her lap to hide it. Marcus noticed. Of course he noticed. "You okay there, Diane? You look a little pale." "Leave her alone," Ethan said. His voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath it now. Hard. Unmistakable. "Or what?" Marcus asked. He pushed off the chair, stood up straighter. "You going to do something about it? You and your, what are you, 35, 36, sitting here with a woman old enough to be your mother. What does that say about you?" Ethan stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. He wasn't tall, but he was solid, and the way he moved. There was something in it that made Marcus take a step back. Just one, instinctive. "It says I'm a decent human being," Ethan said. Each word clear. Precise. "Which is more than I can say for you." Marcus recovered quickly. Laughed again. But it sounded forced now. "Decent, right. Look, I get it. You're defending her. That's very noble. But let's be real here." He looked at Diane. "She's what, 52, 53, and you're sitting here pretending like she's worth your time. Like she's not desperate and pathetic and—" "Stop!" Diane's voice cut through. Raw, breaking. She stood up abruptly. Her chair scraped loud against the floor. "Just stop." Both men looked at her. She was trembling. Tears streaming down her face. Her purse clutched against her chest like a shield. "I can't do this," she said. Her voice was barely holding together. "I can't. Not here. Not with everyone watching. I need to go." She moved toward the door. Fast. Stumbling slightly. Marcus stepped aside with an exaggerated gesture, sweeping his arm, mocking, like he was ushering her out. Ethan reached for her. "Diane, wait." But she pulled away. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't." She took 3 more steps. Her hand was reaching for the door handle. The entire coffee shop watched. Silent. Frozen. Waiting to see if she'd actually leave. If Marcus would win, if shame would drive her out into the rain alone. Ethan felt something crack open inside him. Something that had been building since the moment he'd seen her sitting alone. Since Marcus had walked back in. Since this whole cruel performance had started. No. His voice wasn't loud. But it cut through everything. Through the silence. Through Diane's panic. Through the weight of all those watching eyes. Diane stopped, her hand on the door, her back to the room. To him. Ethan walked toward her. Every step measured, purposeful. When he reached her, he gently touched her arm. She turned, slowly. Her face was destroyed. Mascara streaked, eyes red and swollen, lips trembling. "You're not leaving like this," Ethan said quietly. Just to her. Not because of him. Not because of anyone in this room. "Everyone's staring," Diane whispered. They think I'm." "I don't care what they think," Ethan said. He held her gaze, steady, sure. "And you shouldn't either." "But they're judging me, us. They think." "What I think matters more than what they think," Ethan said. And I think you came here today hoping for something good, a conversation, maybe a connection. And you got treated like garbage by someone who didn't deserve 5 minutes of your time. And now he's back, trying to make you feel even worse, trying to drive you away. His voice was rising now, not shouting, but louder, firmer, meant to be heard. And I'm not going to let that happen, Ethan said. Because you deserve better. You deserve respect and dignity, and someone who sees you for who you actually are. Diane's breath caught. Fresh tears spilled over, but she didn't move toward the door, didn't pull away. Ethan turned to face Marcus. The whole room, all those watching eyes. You want to know what's pathetic, he said. His voice carried now, clear, controlled, but burning with something that had been held back too long. Coming back here just to humiliate someone who showed up in good faith. Marcus opened his mouth. Ethan didn't let him speak. She agreed to meet you, Ethan continued. She was here, on time, ready to give you a chance, ready to have a conversation, to see if maybe there was something worth exploring. And you walked in, looked at her, decided she didn't meet your standards, and left. She lied about what she looked like, Marcus said, defensive now. Those photos were old, Ethan said. The photos were old because she wanted to feel confident, because she wanted to put her best foot forward, because somewhere along the way people like you made her feel like she had to. He took a step closer to Marcus. His hands were at his sides, not threatening, but not backing down either. She used old photos because she wanted to feel beautiful, Ethan said. His voice dropped, got quieter, but somehow more intense, because she wanted to believe that maybe she still had value, that maybe someone would look at her and see something worth their time. And you know what? She does have value. She has so much value. Marcus tried to interrupt. Look, I don't know who you think you. She's kind, Ethan said, louder now, cutting him off. She's thoughtful, she's patient, she's generous. She shows up for the people she cares about even when it's hard, even when it would be easier not to. She loves my daughter more than most people love their own family. She brings her books, and puzzles, and time, and attention, and she never asks for anything in return. His voice was shaking now, with anger, with conviction, with something that had been bottled up for too long. She stayed in my life when everyone else left, Ethan said. When my ex-wife's entire family decided I wasn't worth their time anymore. When they all vanished like I'd never existed. She stayed. She kept showing up. She kept treating me like I mattered, like I was still a good father, like I was still someone. The room was utterly silent. Every person frozen, listening. And if you can't see that, Ethan said, his eyes locked on Marcus, if you can't see how incredible she is, how much she has to offer, how lucky you would have been to get to know her, then you're the one missing out, not her. The words hung in the air. Heavy. True. Undeniable. Marcus's face had gone red. His jaw worked. He looked around the room, searching for support, for someone to back him up. But every face was turned away, uncomfortable, ashamed. Whatever, Marcus muttered. He grabbed his phone, shoved it in his pocket. You two deserve each other. But the words had no power now. They fell flat, empty. He turned toward the door, his movements jerky, angry. The door swung open. Cold air rushed in. Then he was gone. The door closed behind him. Silence held for another long moment. Then slowly, quietly, conversation started again. But different now. Hushed. Respectful. People looked away. Gave them space. The oppressive weight that had pressed down on the room lifted. One person, an older woman sitting alone near the back, caught Ethan's eye. She nodded. Just once, small but clear. Then she looked away. Maya was wiping down the counter again. But she was smiling. Just slightly. And when Ethan glanced at her, she gave him a small thumbs up. The businessman closed his laptop, packed it away, left without looking back. The woman by the window put her phone down, said something to her friend. They both got up, walked past Ethan and Diane toward the door. The woman paused. "Good for you," she said quietly. Then they were gone too. Ethan turned back to Diane. She was staring at him, her eyes wide, wet, disbelieving, like she couldn't quite process what had just happened. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Yes," Ethan said. "I did." She let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh, covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. Ethan waited, gave her time, let her feel everything she needed to feel. When she finally lowered her hands, her face was a mess, but something in her expression had changed, softened, opened, like a door that had been locked for years had finally swung wide. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do that?" "Because it was true," Ethan said simply. "Every word." But everyone was watching. They all heard. "Good," Ethan said. "Maybe they needed to hear it." Diane shook her head. More tears fell. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Ethan picked up his bag from where he'd left it by the table, grabbed Diane's jacket from her chair, brought it to her, held it while she slipped her arms through the sleeves. Then he left some bills on the table. More than enough to cover both their drinks and a generous tip for Maya. He looked at Diane, offered his arm. "Come on, let's get out of here." She hesitated, just for a second. Then she took his arm, let him guide her toward the door. As they walked past the remaining tables, people glanced up, but not with judgment anymore, with something closer to respect, to understanding. A few even smiled, small, awkward, but genuine. Maya called out as they reached the door, "Take care, you two." Ethan looked back, nodded. "Thanks, Maya." Then they stepped outside into the rain. The door closed behind them. The warmth of the coffee shop cut off, replaced by cool November air, wet pavement, the smell of rain and streetlights and the faint exhaust from passing cars. Diane stopped on the sidewalk, pressed her hand against the brick wall. Her breathing was still uneven, like she was trying to catch up to everything that had just happened. "I can't believe that just happened," she said. Her voice was hoarse, exhausted. "I can't believe you did that." Ethan stood beside her, close but not crowding. He had it coming. Maybe. Diane looked at him. Really looked at him. "But now people are going to talk about you, about us. They're going to think we're together, that you and I are something." "Then they'd be wrong," Ethan said. "But it still wouldn't change anything." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'd still do it again," Ethan said, "even knowing they'd talk, even knowing they'd assume things. Because what he was doing to you wasn't right, and someone needed to say it." Diane's eyes filled again, but she was smiling through the tears. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole." "I'm just someone who cares about you," Ethan said. "That's all." They stood there in the rain for another moment, neither of them moving, just breathing, letting the adrenaline drain away, letting the tension release. The street was quiet. A few cars passed, their tires hissing on wet asphalt. The rain was light but steady, the kind that soaked through eventually if you stood in it long enough. "Come on," Ethan said finally. "Let's walk." Diane nodded, pushed off the wall. They started down the sidewalk together, side by side, not touching now, but close, connected. Part 5. They walked half a block before Diane stopped again. She leaned against a lamppost, closed her eyes, took a long, shaky breath. "I can't believe that just happened," she said. "It happened. But what you said in there about me, about—" She opened her eyes, looked at him. "Did you mean it?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "Every word. You said I was kind, thoughtful, that I—" Her voice broke. "That I mattered." "You do matter." Diane shook her head, like she wanted to believe it but couldn't quite make the leap. "I don't feel like I matter. I haven't felt like that in a long time." "Since when?" Ethan asked gently. She was quiet for a moment, thinking. "Since David died, I think. My husband. It'll be 6 years in February. I didn't know it had been that long." "Yeah?" Diane looked down at her hands. "After he was gone, I thought I'd find my footing again. Eventually. That I'd figure out how to be just me without being someone's wife, someone's mother. But instead I just felt empty, like I'd lost my purpose." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And then Rachel got divorced, and I thought at least I still had Emma, still had that connection. But Rachel made it clear she didn't want me around as much. Said I was interfering, that she needed space to figure things out on her own." "I didn't know that either," Ethan said quietly. "She didn't mean it cruelly," Diane said quickly. "She was hurting, going through her own stuff, I understood that, but it still felt like I was being pushed away, like I wasn't needed anymore." She wiped at her eyes. "And then today, that stupid dating app, I thought maybe I could find something, a conversation, a connection, just something to remind me I was still alive, still visible. But instead," she gestured vaguely back toward the coffee shop. "That." Ethan let her talk, didn't interrupt, just listened. Let her pour out everything she'd been holding in. "I used those old photos because I wanted to feel pretty again," Diane said. Her voice was small now, ashamed. "I wanted to believe that version of me still existed somewhere, that I hadn't just disappeared." "You didn't disappear," Ethan said. "I feel like I did." "You didn't," Ethan said more firmly. "You're right here, standing in front of me. And I see you. All of you, not some old photo, not some filtered version, just you. And you're amazing, Diane." Her breath hitched. "You're just being kind." "No," Ethan said. "I'm being honest." He stepped closer, not invading her space, just closing the distance enough that she had to look at him. Had to see his face, his eyes, the truth in them. "You want to know why I sat down today?" Ethan asked. "Really why?" Diane nodded, unable to speak. "Because when I saw you sitting there alone," Ethan said slowly, "I saw someone who'd shown up, who'd been brave enough to put herself out there, to hope for something good. And I thought about all the times you showed up for me, for Emma, when you didn't have to, when it would have been easier to just walk away." He paused, and I realized I couldn't walk away from you. Not when you needed someone, not after everything you'd done for us. "I didn't do anything special," Diane said. "Yes, you did," Ethan said. "You stayed when everyone else left, when it would have been so easy to choose Rachel's side and forget about me. You stayed. You kept coming to see Emma. You kept treating me like I was still part of the family, like I still mattered." His voice caught. He cleared his throat. "Do you know how much that meant to me? How many times I thought about calling you just to say thank you?" Diane was crying openly now. "I didn't know. I thought I was just being a grandmother. You were being more than that, Ethan said. You were being exactly what I needed. Someone who didn't judge, who didn't take sides, who just showed up. He reached out, squeezed her shoulder gently. So, yeah, I sat down today, and I stayed. And I stood up to that guy, because you deserved it, because you deserved to be seen, and valued, and treated with respect. Diane covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. But when she lowered her hands, she was smiling, a real smile, wobbly but genuine. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." "Always," Ethan said. They stood there in the glow of the streetlight, rain falling soft around them. The city hummed in the background, cars passing, distant voices, the sound of water running in the gutters. "We should keep walking," Ethan said finally, "before we get too wet." Diane nodded. They started moving again. Slower this time, no destination in mind, just walking. Being. They passed closed shops, lit windows, a dog walker with 3 small dogs on leashes, a couple sharing an umbrella. Normal evening scenes. The world continuing on like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something important. And both of them could feel it. The shift, the change. Like a weight had been lifted. Like air had finally entered a room that had been sealed too long. "How's Emma really doing?" Diane asked after a while. Her voice was steadier now, calmer. "She's good," Ethan said. "Growing up too fast. She lost another tooth last week. Was so proud of herself." Diane laughed, actually laughed. "Did the tooth fairy visit?" "She did. Left $2 and a note about good brushing habits. You're a good father. I try. You succeed." They walked past a small park. Empty swings moving slightly in the breeze, a basketball court with nets that hung limp and wet, benches no one was sitting on. "She asks about you," Ethan said. "Emma, almost every week. When's Grandma Diane coming? Can we call her? She misses you." Diane's eyes filled again. "I miss her too. So much. You should come by. Soon. This weekend if you want." "I'd like that." "Then it's a plan," Ethan said. "Saturday afternoon. We'll make cookies or something. Emma loves baking." "I remember," Diane said. She smiled at the memory. "She always wants to add extra chocolate chips." "Still does." They walked a little further. The rain was picking up slightly, not enough to send them running for cover, but enough to be noticeable. Diane pulled her jacket tighter, then Ethan stopped. "Wait here a second." Diane looked confused. "What? Just wait here. I'll be right back." Before she could ask why, he jogged across the street. There was a small flower stand on the corner, the kind that stayed open late, run by a woman in her 50s with dirt under her fingernails and a kind face. Ethan approached, pointed to a single white rose in a bucket near the front. The woman smiled, pulled it out carefully, shook off the excess water, wrapped the stem in brown paper, tied it with rough twine. "For someone special?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan said. "Very special." He paid, thanked her, jogged back across the street to where Diane was standing under the lamppost. Watching him, curious, confused, he held out the rose. Diane stared at it, then at him. Her mouth opened slightly. "Ethan." "For you," he said simply. "You didn't have to." "I know," Ethan said. "But I wanted to." Diane reached out slowly, like she was afraid the flower might disappear if she moved too fast. Her fingers brushed his as she took it. The paper crinkled softly. The rose was perfect. White petals just starting to open, drops of rain clinging to them like tiny diamonds. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "So are you," Ethan said. Diane looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, glistening. "You don't mean that." "Yes, I do," Ethan said. He stepped closer. His voice was low but steady. "Sure, you're beautiful, Diane. Inside and out. You're kind. You're generous. You're patient. You love people well. And anyone who can't see that, anyone who walks away from you, they're the ones missing out, not you." Diane's hand trembled as she held the rose. "I can't remember the last time someone gave me a flower." "Then it's about time someone did." She lifted the rose to her face, breathed in. The scent was delicate, sweet, clean. When she lowered it, she was smiling through tears. "Thank you. For this. For everything today. For seeing me. You're welcome." They stood there for a long moment, the rain falling around them, the rose between them. A simple gesture, but it meant everything. Finally, Diane laughed. Soft, almost surprised. "I came to that coffee shop thinking my day couldn't get any worse, and somehow you turned it into something good." "You deserved something good," Ethan said. "Maybe." She looked down at the rose again, touched one of the petals gently. "I'm going to keep this forever. It'll wilt eventually." "I don't care," Diane said. "I'll press it, save it, this moment. I don't want to forget it." Ethan smiled. "I don't think either of us will forget today." "No," Diane agreed. "I don't think we will." They started walking again. Diane held the rose carefully, protectively, like it was made of glass. The rain was lighter now, just a mist. The air smelled clean, fresh, like the city had been washed new. When they reached Ethan's truck, he stopped, checked his watch. "I should get going. Need to pick up Emma from after-school care." "Of course," Diane said. She looked almost disappointed, like she didn't want the evening to end. "But," Ethan said, pulling out his phone, "I want to make sure you're okay, that you get home safe." "I'll be fine." "Humor me," Ethan said. He unlocked his phone, opened a new contact, handed it to her. "Put your number in." Diane hesitated. "You don't have to check on me." "I want to," Ethan said. "I mean it. If you need anything, if you're not okay, call me, text me, anytime." Diane took the phone. Her hands were still shaking slightly, but she typed in her number, added her name, handed it back. Ethan saved it, then immediately sent her a text. "There, now you have mine too." Diane's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, looked at the screen, at his name, his number, a lifeline she hadn't known she needed. "I'll text you tomorrow," Ethan said. "Check in, make sure you're doing okay." "You really don't have to." "I really want to." Diane looked at him, really looked at him, like she was trying to memorize his face, this moment, everything. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole," she said. "Emma is lucky to have you as her father." "I'm lucky to have people like you in my life," Ethan said. "People who stayed, who cared, who showed up." He reached out, touched her shoulder one more time. "Take care of yourself, Diane, and remember what I said. You matter. You're valuable. You're seen." Diane nodded, couldn't speak around the lump in her throat. "And I'll see you Saturday," Ethan said. "Bring your appetite. Emma's going to insist on making way too many cookies." That got a laugh. Small, but real. "I'll be there." "Good." Ethan unlocked his truck, climbed in, started the engine. But before he pulled away, he rolled down the window. "Diane," She turned, still standing on the sidewalk, still holding the white rose. "You didn't disappear," Ethan said. "You're still here, still visible, still important. Don't forget that." Diane pressed her hand to her mouth, nodded. Ethan pulled away slowly, watched her in his rearview mirror until he turned the corner. She was still standing there, under the streetlight, holding the flower, smiling. Diane stood there for a long time after he left. The rain had stopped completely now. The clouds were breaking apart, hints of moonlight filtering through. The street was quiet, peaceful. She looked down at the rose in her hands, white petals perfect against the brown paper. Simple, beautiful, a gift given freely. No strings attached, no expectations, just because. She lifted it to her face again, breathed deep. Let the scent fill her lungs. Let the moment settle into her bones. Then she looked up, caught her reflection in the dark window of a closed shop across the street. She almost didn't recognize herself at first. The woman in the reflection was standing tall, shoulders back, chin up, smiling. She looked alive. Diane took a step forward, then another, started walking toward where she'd parked her car 3 blocks away, but her steps were lighter now, easier, like some invisible weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The streetlights cast long shadows, but she wasn't afraid of them anymore. She walked through them, into the light on the other side, over and over, light and shadow, shadow and light. When she reached her car, she stood beside it for a moment, looked back the way she'd come, toward the coffee shop, toward the flower stand, toward the lamppost where Ethan had given her the rose. She thought about Marcus, about his cruelty, his judgment, the way he'd tried to make her feel small, invisible, worthless. But she also thought about Ethan, about his kindness, his honesty, the way he'd stood up for her, defended her, seen her, and she realized something. Marcus's opinion didn't define her. His rejection didn't diminish her. His cruelty said everything about him and nothing about her true worth. But Ethan's words, his presence, his willingness to stay, that meant something, that mattered. She unlocked her car, got in, set the rose carefully on the passenger seat, buckled it in like precious cargo. Before she started the engine, she pulled out her phone, looked at Ethan's message. "It was good to see you today. You're stronger than you know." She typed a response, deleted it, typed again. "Thank you. For everything, for seeing me, for staying, for reminding me I'm not invisible. You have no idea what that meant." She hit send, then added one more text. "See you Saturday. Tell Emma I'm bringing the good chocolate chips." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then his response. "She'll be thrilled, so will I. Drive safe." Diane smiled, set her phone down, started the car. As she pulled away from the curb, she glanced at the rose. Still perfect, still beautiful, still there. She thought about pressing it, saving it, keeping it forever as a reminder of this day, of the moment someone had looked at her and seen worth, value, beauty. But maybe she didn't need to press it. Maybe the memory itself was enough. The feeling of being seen, of mattering, of not being invisible. That feeling would stay with her long after the petals had wilted and fallen. The streets were quiet as she drove home. The rain had left everything clean, shining, new, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Diane felt new too. Not because of a man, not because of validation from outside, but because someone had reminded her of what she'd forgotten. That she mattered, that she was kind, that she was valuable, that she was seen, and maybe, just maybe, she could start believing that again. The white rose sat on her passenger seat. A simple gift, a profound gesture, a reminder that beauty existed. that kindness existed, that connection existed, and that she, Diane Harper, 53 years old, widowed, lonely, searching. She existed too, and that was enough. What did you think of Ethan's choice to stand up for Diane? Have you ever had someone see your worth when you couldn't see it yourself? Share your story in the comments. And if this story touched you, consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we're seen, that we matter, that we're not invisible. Thanks for reading.